Hello everybody, I'm Soumya Murthy. I am making this video on agricultural resources in India. This would be basically helpful for the fourth semester students. This is basically for the second chapter, development of agriculture. So we'll be discussing about agricultural resources in India. We all know India is a country which is rich in its natural resources. So the basic resources of agriculture, as we know, are obviously sunlight, soil, and the water. Besides this, we also consider seeds, the animal breeds, and basically we as human beings contributing to development of agriculture as one of the resources. So another important input is the agro techniques. A lot of technology is also helping for agriculture to improve. All that we can include in the resources aspects. Agricultural production is adversely affected if any of these factors is limited or disturbed. We know when you don't have enough rainfall, or when we have excess of rainfall, or when there is lack of proper seeds made available to the farmers, or at the right time their availability is important. All this have basically hindered the production. So even the scientific study is actually telling us the same, that technological innovations to manipulate these factors, to maximize production is helping agriculture. So what we try to do is try to bring in a little bit of technology and some changes of mishappenings happening is trying to correct it in terms of the technology innovations that we have. So somehow we try to manage to get our agricultural produce. So increasingly nowadays we find that application of science and technology is also preventing, or at least minimizing, wasteful uses of precious resources, because we all know our resources are very, very important and we can't take that for granted. We have to be judicious in terms of utilizing our resources. So now what we're trying to do is make use of a science and technology which would help us to reduce this wastage that we were doing, because resources are very precious. So to begin with, let's discuss about the soil as a resource. So land is very important resource, and not just that, optimum utilization of land is very important, because when you don't make use of the land for productive purposes, it is a waste. It just remains an empty piece of land. So to make it available for productive purposes is very, very important. So India has wide variety of soils. We have diverse soil types, and each has its own characteristics as well as deficiencies. So we should try to see which soil is suitable to grow what kind of a crop. You can't try to grow the same thing in all regions of India. So we should first test the soil to check the physical characteristics and the nutrients before suitable crop is grown in it. And this helps us to make the yield maximum, and also the fertility of the soil is also not wasted. So one, you're saving your time because you know what crop to be grown, you know what soil you have and what is the fitness of the soil and how nutrient it is, so what can be grown. So you're saving the precious time, resources to bring in maximum output. So then what is happening to the soil? Is it that you have soil and nothing happens to it? We all know there is something called as soil erosion. So the top soil, what we have is very, very valuable soil. To get this top soil, which is so very fertile, it takes about, 50 years. So the nature is taking 50 years, maybe even more, to build just a centimeter of it. This fertile soil, what we have on the top layer, nature is taking more than 50 years to make this. But yet, soil erosion is a major problem, not just in India, world over. So we find that when you have flooding or excess rain, your top soil layer just washes away. It just loses the top fertile soil. So when all the soil cannot be protected by just growing trees or grass cover, for crop cultivation, it's the basic human need that cropping pattern can be scientifically managed to reduce wastage and erosion through some of the methods. So our priority is, when you know that your topsoil is fertile and it takes a lot of years to make it, it becomes our duty to somehow try to protect it. So we thought by just having trees or grass on top of it would save us. No. So we just look into the different methods. So how do we try to then reduce erosion? So one is by contour bunding. So you make ridges out of soil in the field. So I think this is a very familiar picture we all see and have seen. So you make use of your soil or the mud that is there to make the contour bunding, that is the ridges out of the soil. Then you have something called as gully plugging, that is reducing the speed of run of water by placing materials like hedges, sandbags in water channels. So you have these bags where you try to fill it with sand and try to make these sandbags as a barrier so that it doesn't just wash off or take away your fertile soil by the excess flow of water. And then planting green manure plants and trees on the field bunds. Controlled shifting cultivation, which is that is, if the land is not left fallow long enough, that would lead to soil degradation of dangerous proportion. So the shifting of agriculture and cultivation, what we call from one crop to another, is again essential so that soil degradation doesn't happen. So then how do we bring about this reclamation of soil? Because the growth of population, one is creating an increased demand for agricultural products. So when there is huge demand for agricultural products, it becomes necessary we try to reclaim the lands. Reclamation of land is very, very important because those unused lands can be used for productive purposes so that it doesn't remain unproductive. So reduced soil productivity and abandonment of productive soil are again serious issues arising out of salinization and alkalization. So basically our lands, few are left barren, unproductive. So we're trying to reclaim lands. Another problem that we are facing is about uh, your soil is becoming or having more of salt content in it. Salinization and alkalization is happening about those sands, or I'm sorry, those soils which we're using for productivity. So moving on to the next resource, water. Water is even now, a very important aspect which we depend to a larger extent. And as we all know, Indian farmers gamble with the monsoon. We wait and wait for the rains, and it's not that we are prepared with artificial sources of water. So we know rainfall is unevenly distributed, and in some years monsoon fails and hence resulting in drought, and that year a crop also fails. So it's a measure of the resilience injected into our agriculture, wherein you're trying to not be affected by the droughts, which was so much in the past. The geographical situation of the country is forcing us to learn to cope with inconsistent monsoons. The average annual rainfall that we receive is about 370 million hectares, of which about 80 million hectare meters of water seeps into the soil. So half of this remains as the topsoil and which helps in plant growth, and the rest further goes down to constitute the groundwater. However, we must note down that the saline groundwater is not useful for irrigation. So the useful underground water, according to the recent reports, is being depleting alarmingly. We know that we are trying to increase our groundwater. So we have rainwater harvesting and other things happening so that we can raise our groundwater level. So, in brief, I'll just tell you that we have these irrigational schemes. We have the major, minor, and medium irrigational projects set up in India. So basically, we'll deal with irrigation in one of the other videos. So then what is irrigation? Irrigation is we are trying to provide water to your agricultural fields, not waiting for your rains or monsoon to occur. So it is basically your artificial supply of water. So there was a time when multi-purpose river valley projects were considered very essential for development and prosperity, but it's not the same anymore. The dams which were constructed, basically, we have many multi-purpose river valley projects and dams being constructed throughout India. That has no doubt proved a very important factor in achieving a successful breakthrough in agriculture, because this helped us to get the water for our agricultural fields. We were able to irrigate our agricultural fields and bringing a lot of production. When it comes to the irrigation projects, we see that the success has been overrated. Serious problems have arisen. Heavy siltation of the reservoirs of major dams have reduced the storage capacity and they have become incapable of absorbing heavy floods. A disastrous fallouts happen in terms of degradation of the soil in the command areas of irrigation projects due to waterlogging and soil salinity. So irrigation was something like, one agent where we thought will solve all our problems. You have dams, you have water, so all the problem is solved. But it's not happening that way. We are finding a lot of issues happening like salinity, alkalinity, waterlogging because of our irrigation projects as well. So some problems have been faced in terms of irrigation also. So moving on to canals. Canal irrigation again has contributed to long land degradation. Groundwater table rises due to accession of applied water to groundwater. So there, through deep percolation formed unlined field canals, distributaries and main canals, and restrictive drainage due to construction activities. So the salt content of most groundwater in the arid and semi-arid regions is very high, and this further is accentuating the process leading to the formation of salt affected soils. So there are numerous examples of land degradation following these introductory methods of irrigation. So moving on to seeds, there was a time when we could get vegetables in certain seasons. So we know how you would wait for that particular season to have your favorite fruits or your vegetables. Now it's not the same. Now you know that cabbages and cauliflowers are available throughout the year, and by genetic manipulation, scientists have also brought about change in the genetic architecture of the plants. So there was no longer, so there is no longer a season bound or a period fixed productions. So it's not like you wait for the season to enjoy your fruits or vegetables. These new varieties can be fitted in rotation with the other crops, or the simultaneous cultivation of crops can increase production and productivity. So by incorporating several of the desirable characteristics in one variety, they create a hybrid which may be not high yielding, but also which is a pest and disease resistant, and which is having a very short duration. So this would act as an advantage to the farmers. So we would summarize that we discussed about the different resources available in India like soil, water and seeds. Thank you.